This tutorial will be talking about creating different planes using our drop down here. We've already done offset from plane, so what we'll look at in this tutorial is parallel to plane through point. Okay, we'll look at midplane between two parallel planes. We'll look at angle to plane around edge, 3 points, and 2 coplanar edges. And you'll see that by and large, once you get the hang of it, it makes sense. It's more just identifying what the points are, edges, or faces, what that means in reference. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is create a box. I'll start my XY as I always do, and I'm going to start right at the origin point, and I'm going to pull it out a certain distance. It doesn't really matter. Okay, and extrude this part out. All right, perfect. So, as again, when we're dealing with something like this, if we want to make an angle, what have you, an angled plane, an angled surface, an angled piece, we'll have more options to do this with planes. So again, we've done offset from plane. Now if we want to do parallel to plane through a point, in order to create that point outside of this, we'd want to choose one of our origins here. So say I wanted to use XZ for the time being, and so we'll start off by creating a sketch on the XZ. Okay. When I do that, notice how it cuts it in half because that's where the XZ is located based on how I created my my first part. Okay. And now what I can do is create a point somewhere. I'm going to go into the top and I'm going to zoom out a little bit. I can make my point anywhere here. So I'm going to make it way over here. And here's the cool thing. What I can do now, once I've created my point in my sketch, I now have this point that's located out here. I can then use this point, right, with parallel to plane through a point. So what I can do is I can choose this plane or this plane, and I can actually create another plane that's parallel to that from that at that point. Please note also that instead of doing that, I could undo that, and I could also do this face at that point, parallel to that plane. Okay, so notice how I'd have this point in a certain distance. Okay, that would give me that option. So the key here is just identifying where that point would want to be, and again, I could also create the parallel to a plane through a point based on parallel to that plane, that point. I could have it out that distance. Now we know that basically offset would work well enough for that. So this is just more practicing in case sometime you need to use that. So now I'm going to make these go away. I'm going to make those disappear. I'm going to hide these. Escape. Okay, so I'm going to click off visibility as we had before. Let's move on to the next one. So the next thing I'd like to do, so go ahead and try those, and then next thing I'm going to do, midplane between two parallel planes. This one's an easy one because all I have to have is two parallel planes, so the top and bottom, and it will automatically identify the exact point. And again, I can do the same thing for front and back. This is pretty handy if you have some part and you have to go exactly halfway in between, so you don't have to even measure. Create that plane in there. You can create your part now on that sketch point. Create whatever you like using that plane. Alright, so let's get rid of those two as well. Okay, click off visibility again. So that's two of them we've looked at. So we've now practiced parallel to a plane through a point and midplane between two parallel planes. Okay, go ahead and pause this if you need another second to practice, if you haven't already. Now let's look at angle to plane around an edge. Now the only part you really need to concern yourself about is the edge. Okay, so now on this we have many different edges we could choose from, but depending on where you want to have that angled piece. Okay, so I'm going to choose an edge, and then what I have to do is identify the other face that I'm going to base my degree of angle from. So say we choose the top. Now notice how this gives me an adjustment. I can choose it to go up, so that's going to be based on that, say like 135 degrees, 45 degrees. Now then this, I could go back, or I could do the same thing again. say one back in here, and instead we could try, see how it differs if I choose this face, and again I can adjust this down to 45 degrees, okay, and that would be off the front, or it could be 70 degrees, and so I've got a plane now that is 70 degrees and adjust it over this. So if I needed to make a part that was going to be create some other aspect of this part that's going to be at a 70-degree angle to that surface, I'm sorry, from this surface up, okay, we could make that happen. All right, so give that a try. We've got another work plane. I'll make that invisible as well. And here's another one. Okay. We can also do two coplanar edges. I'm sorry, 3 points. Let's do 3 points next. 3 points. We can identify those 3 points any which way we want. Do the back point, front point, and lower point. Front point here. Point up here, of course, would be along the same plane. Or I could go to, say, like a point down here. Either, any which way, it's going to cut this in some particular way. Okay, it's going to add a plane that works off of those 3 points. Now, if you have 3 points, this is perfect. All right. Lastly, 2 coplanar edges. Coplanar. Okay, so front and back. We do front and back here. All right, they have to be pretty much across from each other. What that ends up doing, okay, what that ends up doing is cutting at whatever angle, distance you've got from your from one edge to the forward edge. Right, that will create a plane that cuts those. All right, so give those a try, okay, and see how it works.